this one is Orville Lord, my father. He was the oldest one in the family, and he wanted to go to medical school. They used to just go to 8th grade and then go on to school, but they said he was needed as a farmer. And when I was studying anatomy, he knew all the bones and all the muscles. And I think this other sad thing in his life was because when my grandfather Lord died when I was a baby, the family all got together and decided, since my father was the oldest, he should go there and live with grandmother Lord. And I was just a baby. And I remember Millicent telling me my mother cried and cried because they were going to move to that house just east of them. And she'd put out strawberry plants and planted a garden, was all ready to go there. And Millicent said that my mother cried. She had 4 children. No, 3. And she was afraid that we would be noisy and upset grandmother Lord. So that was sad. And grandmother Lord then died when I was 10. And I remember going in her part of the house. They have changed that since when Karen went there. But there was a little slanted place over the dug well, and she would sit there with a little airtight stove with her feet up, and she would eat crackers and strawberries and milk. And I would lie on the floor and watch her chin go up and down. You know how boring it was in the country. Oh dear. And when she was, well, we're not talking about her yet, are we?
Oh, you can talk about her.
Well, when she was married.
And which
Frances Orlando Lord.
Uh-huh.
You're talking about Viola Jane?
Viola Jane, she worked hard. They had 5 boys, plus she had hired hands sometimes. Betty Lawson was one that stayed there. And Dad said she'd bake bread every day, and so they didn't want to eat the stale bread, and they'd hide it under the table. She wore her boys' old shoes. She worked like a Turk, but she made the most beautiful, beautiful quilts.
Uh-huh.
I wish we had some of those, but, we used them for utility.
Huh.
And grandmother Lord always prepared the communion for our church.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank and I were ornery. And we went down the cellar one time, and we found this jar of grape juice that was loosened. And we started in on that. And it's a good thing my mother found us, or we'd have been drunk. Frank was so afraid of snakes. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
We went out to the chicken house one time, and he stepped on a snake, and he couldn't talk for a long time. and Dorothy said when they go to any zoo or anything, he wouldn't go near the snakes. Someone in Linda's family asked why Frank had this scar on his forehead.
Uh-huh.
And I remember when he was a little boy, he was on a chair, and it tipped, and he fell against the baseboard and hit his head. And Mother rang the dinner bell. Everybody came running, and they put flour in that to stop the bleeding.
Really?
Yes,
wow.
Yes. Frank and I were very close. I think I'd have laid on the railroad track and know that he'd pick me up. And Frank and your dad used to come, if we were going to have a family dinner, they'd come early and they'd look around the basement and they'd look at the garage. They liked him. They were nosy.
That's funny. That's funny. Now I have another question here about your dad there. So what made him a good mediator?
I don't know. He served as county commissioner after Grandpa Lord. I don't know. He never got upset. He was very plain spoken. He was honest. And they must have trusted him. Because I remember one time we had a meeting, and I crawled under the chair and listened to the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
But he was very calm.
Uh-huh.
But we knew when he was upset because he would break out with perspiration. And one time, I shouldn't tell this, but we had something go wrong with the hay thing that took the hay up in the hay mow. He had to replace the rope. And he never would take us to the band concert. So Mother and Frank and Joanne and I all held that rope and wouldn't let him down until he promised to take us. And you won't want this on the record, but I'll have to tell you what about Grandpa Frank.
Okay.
see, Dad wouldn't go to the fair. He wouldn't go any Greentown to the band concert or anything. So Frank went with Leslie Eckebarger, he and his cousin Jim Lord, and they crawled under at Converse Fair, and they crawled under the tent of this girly show, and there was Leslie, superintendent of church. And then Frank and his cousin Johnny Lord were in Chicago one time, and they lost their wristwatches at the point of a knife.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's not good.
I'm sure that family would like to know some of our family history too, because I kept in touch with Bill Lord several years, and he died. And his cousin promised to send me to obituary, but he didn't.